Vince, I'm going to ask you, are you ready for rapid fire?
Ready for a hump day version of rapid fire.
Let's go. Let's
Let's
do it.
do it.
Good mailbag questions tonight.
Yeah,
Let's
some
do
good
some
ones.
rapid fire. We'll see how these go.
Really asking us to really project into the future,
I know.
which I always hesitate to do. But then again, that's all you're going to do here as well in rapid fire. So here we go.
It's kind of what it comes down to. What does a Heisman Trophy season look like for Jeremiyah Love?
Man, he is going to have to be just an absolute stud on this team in order to be a Heisman Trophy winning running back, right? He's gonna
not
have
just a candidate, but the actual
correct.
winner.
I mean, that's obviously gonna be the issue, right? So I'm frantically trying to find Ashton Genty's stat line from
He had over 2,000
college.
yards.
That's what I
last
thought.
year.
So that's not going to happen. He's not going to have 2,000 yards because he's not going to get the ball that much. He's not going to get the ball enough to have 2,601 yards, which is what Ashton Genty ended up having. A Heisman Trophy winning season, he's going to have to be probably around the 1,500 mark, though. And he's going to have probably 15 plus touchdowns.
And another 400 or 500 yards receiving.
Correct.
I think.
Correct. Touching, like approaching 2,000 combined yards, we can have that conversation. But he's not going to have over 2,000 on the ground.
Yeah. And like Derrick Henry, it's amazing. It's already been 10 years since the last Derrick Henry was the last running back to win it. And I think part of what you need is a quarterback who's not playing, a quarterback on like a Will Howard, for example, I guess would be, like quarterback playing for a really good team, but not necessarily putting up like monster numbers. You can't have those kind of quarterbacks, like you can't have a Joe Burrow type season going on, so that's part of it. Because like when Derrick Henry won the Heisman, he and Christian McCaffrey and Deshaun Watson were the three finalists, and Henry and McCaffrey both had over 2,000 yards that season. So like, I agree with what you're saying. Like Jeremiyah Love is not going to have a 2,000-yard rushing season because he's just not going to get the touches that are going to get him there. Now,
he doesn't want them either, by the way.
Exactly. Now, can he have over 2,000 yards from scrimmage? Yes. And part of how you do that is I think he is essentially just needs to be a human highlight reel all season long, regardless of what the big picture numbers look like. But like he just needs to have those breakaway runs where he's running away from people. Think Reggie Bush, the way he did it, both rushing and receiving, just the ability, and he can to outrun everybody. And I think that he's going to need to have, like some good games at the front part of the schedule against both Miami and Texas A&M, which will both most likely be, a national primetime TV, maybe Boise State as well, since they were a playoff team, and USC, obviously. But I just feel like whatever his numbers end up being, he just he needs those hurdles, and he needs those, just those big breathtaking type plays where he's running away from people all season long. I think that that's what it's going to take, because again, I just don't think he's going to have that monster 2,000-yard type season. It just needs to be like, this is a difference maker because he can outrun anybody else who's on the field at the same time.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And it's going to have, those highlight plays are going to happen. I mean, not that I think that they won't, but the hurdles, like the big moments, like all of those things are absolutely going to have to, like, you're going to have that Heisman moment, right? Or Heisman moments, plural. He's going to have to be a human highlight reel. I agree with that completely. And I think combined yards, he's probably going to have to be pushing 2,000.
Yeah.
If not over.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. He doesn't return kicks, so like that will.
Right. And why would you? But yes.
But that, like, if he did and he took a couple kicks back, like a Rocket Ismail. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I get that.
Okay, so let's go to another prime position on offense, wide receiver. What does an acceptable season look like for Notre Dame's top two wide receivers this season? Regardless of what their names are, what does the production need to look like from the top two guys. And I
I
know
feel-
you hate predicting
I
receiver
know,
stuff, but
seriously,
here we
I'm
go.
so bad at it. So my instinct, which is awful, decided that the top two guys, 1,800 yards.
Okay.
That, from a yardage standpoint. Touchdowns, I don't really care. Because once you get into the red zone, Notre Dame has a lot of options as to who can actually catch the touchdowns. You've got a super tall and athletic tight end. You've got multiple wide receivers. You've got multiple guys out of the backfield, and you've got the quarterback. So, there's all kinds of guys that can get touchdowns in the red zone. So I don't care how many touchdowns the wide receivers have. Yardage-wise, 1,800. That's where I'm at.
It's just amazing that Jordan Faison finally had that 100-yard game in the Sun Bowl, more than a year ago now at this point. And then we went all the way, I think, to Jaden Greathouse before we finally had another. And then he had back-to-back 100-yard games. But it's also amazing that we're going on 6 years since Notre Dame's last 1,000-yard receiver when Chase Claypool did it in 2019. And when you think about it, it really shouldn't be that hard.
I know.
Notre Dame has made it look so hard to have 1,000-yard receivers. It's only 83 yards a game over a 12-game schedule. And then if you're playing in bowl games, it goes down even farther, into the 70s. So it shouldn't be that hard to do. But 2020 was Michael Mayer's freshman year. It was the start of the tight end dominates the offense for Notre Dame. To me, if you go back to 2018, Boykin had 59 catches for 872 yards. Claypool had 50 catches for 639 yards. I think I could live with those kind of numbers, with two guys, and I think Josh said it, at least 800 yards each. I think that with this quarterback and with this offense, that is very manageable. Two wide receivers with between probably 55 and 70 catches each, both of them over 800 yards. I think that would be
That's
very
fair.
doable.
Because I do also think that there's going to be other guys involved, you know what I mean, in the 400, 500 round, range. So, yeah, it's all doable. And again, I hate predicting wide receiver numbers, but I feel better with the fact that I think there's a quarterback that's going to be able to get them the football.
Michael says Malachi Fields needs 1,000 yards and Mike Denbrock's full offense, and the quarterback isn't coming back from injury. This should happen, guaranteed. Let's not tie everything to the past. I'm just trying to give some references to where
why we hate predicting wide receiver yardage and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But I think Malachi Fields is very capable of being a 1,000-yard receiver in this offense, and I think Chase Claypool is as well. Honestly, but again,
Greathouse.
Yeah, did I say Claypool?
You did.
When I look at them, they kind of remind me of each other.
I get it.
When you see them. So I do that because Claypool actually, when the Notre Dame women were playing at Miami, Claypool showed up at the game. And when I first looked, I was like, why would Jaden Greathouse be here? I said, oh, okay. Hold it. But it was Chase Claypool. So in any case, I think if both of those guys, Greathouse and Fields, end up with over 800 yards, I'd be very happy with that. I think that's a recipe for a successful offense and really the kind of offense that everyone has been hoping to see for a long time. Fill in the blank. The two Notre Dame players who are the most pleasant surprises in 2024 were blank and blank.
Yeah, this is hard. This one was hard for me because I guess I just have high expectations for a lot of guys. I think Aneyas Williams is a pleasant surprise for me because he was a true freshman, and I think he came up huge in a lot of different moments. So I'll say Aneyas Williams for one, and I will also say Leonard Moore is my second one. He's a very pleasant surprise, and again, both true freshmen, both guys that you probably going into the season didn't think that you were going to get a ton of production from, and I think they were both very key cogs in the wheel that went to the national championship game.
I am going with Leonard Moore. He was my easiest one.
Okay.
To essentially start the season as the number 4 cornerback, because remember, Jaden Mickey was still in the mix at the start of the season as well, and Benjamin Morrison was healthy at the start of the season, and you had Christian Gray. And by the end of the season, obviously due to, Mickey leaving the team and then Benjamin Morrison's injury that ended his season, Leonard Moore ends up being the number one cornerback,
I know,
in the room. So to go from 4-1 and really, like coming out of training camp, like it wasn't necessarily a lock that he was even number 4, I think, at that point. Even though he was on the depth chart, it was a little bit, more by necessity than anything. But so Leonard Moore is my number 1. Emil Wagner is my number 2, because again, I keep falling back on it. Like, he ended up being Notre Dame's, like, a first-time starter at right tackle, ended up being the most consistent lineman that they had from start to finish. And, obviously managed to avoid injuries like so many of the other guys, so that helped. But so Emil Wagner was my pleasant surprise number 2 for the way he played.
I get it. I see that. I see it.
Andrew throwing a couple in there. Junior Tuialamaka and Anthony Knapp. I think you can probably include Knapp because, again, like, true freshman, not knowing what you were going to get. I do think, I think you've been a little bit harder on Knapp than I have. But again, if you grade on a curve,
right,
and what he was thrust into as a true freshman, playing left tackle, and very limited other options, I think it was a successful season, especially considering they went to the national championship game. There were definitely some bumps and some learning moments along the way.
Oh yeah,
but I think you could include him as a pleasant surprise, considering he was a true freshman out there. What do you think about Tuialamaka?
I think he was steady. I don't know that he was very surprising, and he's been around the program for long enough. It was time for him to step up, so I wouldn't call him a surprise to me. I think he's just now touching some potential, not fulfilling it.
Yeah, again, Anthony, I don't want this to come across as like I'm knocking Knapp, because I'm not, but like, freshman All-American, especially for offensive line, it's like there are very few freshman offensive linemen who are going to meet that criteria because they're freshmen, and
Correct.
so few freshmen, typically play on the offensive line. I'm not saying it was handed to him by any means, but
it didn't hurt that he plays for Notre Dame. They went to the national championship, and he's a true freshman.
Right. It's like when I was coaching baseball, I nominated a kid for all-conference designated hitter, and he got first team, and he had a nice season. But it was like the same thing in high school. There are so few like designated hitters who are going to put up those kind of, it because you've been through the same nominating process. Like, if you have any kind of decent season, you're going to end up being first team all conference at that position, because they nominate, because most guys who are good enough are playing a position.
Listen, I love my child more than anything, but when he got first team all state, it's because, he plays a position that he specializes in that other guys, they just kind of throw somebody out there to do it, like punting or kicking. You know what I mean? So
go find a soccer player who can kick.
Right. So it's like he specializes in it and he's good at it, but the field is smaller of the people that you're competing with, right? He's not a defensive back. He's not a quarterback, so, I'm realistic too. Like, he deserved everything that he got, but it's a smaller field. And that's the point that I think you're making. Like,
right.
It's you got a better chance of getting some accolades because there's less people to choose from. There's less people that are really good at it, So yeah,
it's kind of like, the all independent team, you and the 3 other teams,
right? Yeah.
Okay, great.
Correct.
Notre Dame's got all the all independents,
It's really funny actually, like, because on video games they have that, you know what I mean? Like, the all conference team, it's all independent team.
I remember I was like 12 or 13, and there was some track organization in Kansas, and it was one of these, like, you could go to a qualifying meet and, like, do whatever events. And if you placed in like the top 2 or 3, you could go to the state meet. It was literally me, like the only dude who showed up in my age group. And so it's like I won all these events, and it's like I'm not going to state and like finishing in 10th place and everything because was the only guy who showed up at this thing. So,
yeah. Believe me, I totally get it. Totally get it.
All right, Indiana, Arizona State, SMU, Army, and Navy all had surprisingly big seasons.
Yes, they
last
did.
year. I want you to rank them in the order you think they have the best chance to keep it going this year.
I would say the Naval Academy. I mean, the academies are tough, right? Because they're just an odd bird, and they also play lower level teams.
Army loses Bryson Daly.
Yeah, that's a big
Navy.
One.
Blake Horvath was a junior last year, so he's back for his senior season. So like that's the biggest difference in those two teams to me. I think Navy's got a decent chance because they've got the quarterback back, and he was so good.
I would go Navy, SMU, Army, Arizona State, IU.
Wow. Well, I know you hate IU, so that's why you're putting them.
Well, they have a really hard schedule too. Have you looked at their schedule? Like they got a tough schedule.
I actually meant to look at that, and I think I forgot to look at
they based on the schedule they had last year and the schedule they have this year coming up. It's definitely a different neighborhood that they're going to be trick-or-treating in.
Trying to pull it up here.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, you're right. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. I don't know how they're going to navigate that.
Okay, all those teams play those crappy 3 games. You know what I mean? Come on now.
Well, that's part of how they were so good last year.
Well,
they go to Iowa. They go to Oregon. They play Michigan State. They go to Penn State. They have Wisconsin as well. I would say that's tougher than.
They avoided every single Big Ten team that was in the top half of the Big Ten, except for Ohio State, and they got beat.
They did play Michigan, who was the defending national champ. Obviously, we know what Michigan turned out to be, but my point is, it's like, that going into the season obviously looked like it was going to be a major hurdle.
Look, they'll be 3-0. I fully anticipate that they'll be 3-0 because if they can't beat Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State, then that's a problem, right? So they're going to be 3-0. We'll see what happens when they have to face some actual Big Ten, team.
I have Arizona State at the top of my list. You have Arizona State second to last, only ahead of Indiana. They lose Scattaboo, but they bring back 17 starters.
Oh, that's a lot
from last year's team. And basically, Mississippi State is the toughest non-conference game that they have, and they have a very manageable Big 12 schedule. I've got SMU second. Again, they lost some guys, but they returned Kevin Jennings at quarterback, and like they've, now they do play at Clemson this year. They play Miami. I think their schedule will be a little tougher because remember that was another thing with the ACC, just like with the Big Ten, not everybody played each other. So I go Arizona State, SMU, Navy because of Horvath, Indiana after Navy, and then I've got Army at the bottom of the list because basically Bryson Daly's gone. I think that they can still be good. They do play Kansas State this year, but that's the toughest team that they play. But I think that replacing the quarterback will be a little bit harder on Army.
Okay.
So bonus, I didn't add this. I didn't have this on the initial list since we're talking about some of these teams. We're going to do Arizona State, baby.
Oh, I thought we were going to do IU. Damn it. Okay.
You want to do IU? We can do IU instead. It doesn't matter.
I figure I want to keep my IU bashing to a minimum, so let's just do it all in one show.
Okay.
So let's do it.
All right. Let me pull up their schedule again here real quick so we can go through it. Bum, bum, bum. This is always good audio when we're looking for things. Okay, so what we're going to do.
Got it.
If you've missed the game, what we're doing this year is we're looking at the schedule of the team, and then based on that, we guess what Vegas has as their over/under win total for the season. And then so we don't look at the lines beforehand.
Yep.
So here we go. Indiana starts with Old Dominion. Then they have Kennesaw State and Indiana State. 3 very manageable.
Very much so.
Start the season.
Yeah. Correct.
Even for a team replacing its quarterback and its backfield and its secondary. And
those are
by the way, they had 2 players drafted I don't know if you saw that.
Okay. Rourke and the wide receiver.
I think that they both went to San Francisco.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that they've got the 3 FCSs at the start, and then Illinois, at Iowa, at Oregon, home against Michigan State, home against UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State, Wisconsin, and then Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
At Purdue, actually.
Okay.
So, what's your guess on what Indiana's FanDuel Sportsbook over/under win total will be for this season?
I think it should be 7.5, but I think it will be 8.5.
Okay.
So I'm going to go 8.5. That's my answer, but I think it should be 7.5.
8.5.
What say you?
I wanted to get the. Hold it. I want to go to the page here. Okay, so let me see.
There's a lot. There's a more than a few toss-up games in there. I think Illinois is a toss-up game. I think Iowa could be a toss-up game. Maryland, I think IU can win that game. UCLA, they should win that game. Purdue, they should win that game. So I see 7 wins on here for sure. I feel like I hesitate to say for sure, but there's some tough ones too. So I think it should be 7.5, but I think it's going to be 8.5 based on last year.
Those are the numbers that I'm going back and forth on. Is it going to be 7.5 or is it going to be 8.5? I'm going to go 7.5.
Okay, that's what I want to do, but I just feel like they're going to get a bump.
Vince is going 8.5. Indiana 8.5.
Yes!
Nicely done. Nicely done. I am 0 for this game so far.
And I will take the under on the 8.5, by the way.
Yep. Me too.
I will take the under on that. So IU fans are going to they should be happy, by the way. If let's say they get 8 wins in this season, right? They should still be extremely happy with that season based on the schedule that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
That's a good season, man. And you're going to go to a bowl game with a chance for a 9th win. Like, that's a good season. That's IU football, folks. Like, we'll see if he can get them up here and keep them up here. But I think 8-9 wins, if you can do that consistently at IU, that's Kurt Cignetti will work there forever. You know what I mean? If he can consistently deliver 8 or 9 wins, you'll work in Bloomington forever.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll see. We'll see if he can keep the magic rolling into year 2. But like you said, you win 9 games this year. I realize it's not going to get you to the college football playoff, but I think if you're Indiana football, you're going to take that any day of the week.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
But if this is what an Indiana schedule is going to look like on a year in, year out basis,
right.
Oregon, Penn State, those are tough games. But again, Michigan was the national champion 2 years ago.
Sure.
And, dropped pretty quickly from one season to the next. And Cignetti rose them up. But all right.
Heading out to Oregon that's a tough road trip, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
And if they're going to continue to have their non-conference schedule be 1AA teams.
They're basically just going to fill it with win. Because last year they had Florida International, Western Illinois, and Charlotte.
Right. Geez, I realize you're looking for wins, IU, but come on, man. You got to boost up that non-conference schedule just a skosh, just a little bit. Throw in a group of 5 team in there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's a whole lot of MAC teams you could be playing, but got them to the champion or got them to the playoff last year, scheduling that way. So
David says he thinks Cignetti's fixing for a bigger job going forward.
I think that's accurate. I absolutely agree with that. Like I said, if he can consistently have IU where they're at, then other schools will come calling. I think that's fair.
Yep. The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000, and they also fined defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 after Ulbrich's 21-year-old son Jax made the prank call to Shedeur Sanders during the draft last weekend. Ulbrich's son of course, got the number from his dad's open iPad in their house before he made the prank call. Does the punishment fit the crime, Vince?
No, not in my opinion. $350,000 is a lot of
It's
money.
a lot of money
a
for a prank call,
man. Like, did it really hurt anybody? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to remove myself from, like, obviously the Sanders hate and all of that kind of stuff, because that has nothing to do with this. Like, I'm thinking of, like, let's say Riley Leonard got prank called, or somebody that was a Notre Dame person got prank called. Okay, like, I don't see it. He issued a public apology. Like, should his dad have left the iPad unlocked? I guess not. But, like, the kid's 21 years old. He's an adult. Like, he's not, his dad is not responsible for his kid at 21. I'll just say that. So finding the Falcons and finding the coach.
It's in his house, though. It's in his house.
It's just,
I mean, ultimately, he's responsible for
Right.
the information and securing the information. But
I think it's overkill. I think the punishment is absolute overkill.
Well, especially when you look at what $250,000 means to the Atlanta Falcons versus what $250,000 means to the coach, or what $100,000 means to the coach.
Yeah.
That's, even though, the coach is well paid. Sure, he's an NFL assistant coach, but, like, that's a pretty big disparity right there. Like, to me, how about just make the kid go out and do, like, 50 hours of community service or something?
Yes.
Like, like, to me, that would be suitable.
Right.
I think. Like,
make him answer phones at a telethon or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, $350,000 is a lot of money for a silly prank call.
Like Michael says, prank calls are not illegal.
No, they're not.
And this is a grown man, but the issue is Ulbricht's inability to protect what is supposed to be, not classified information, obviously, but
confidential,
what's the
to a
seriousness?
Degree.
What's the real seriousness of this? A high-profile draft pick got prank called during draft weekend. Like somebody else was saying, a bunch of guys got pranked last year. And somebody else even got pranked last weekend. No one's even talking about that one. I think it might have been the same guy. I don't know, but still. My point is, it's overboard, I think, to me.
I do want to hit on this. Salty says physicians can be fired for cause on the spot for releasing or not safeguarding protected health information.
Well, again,
that's called HIPAA. That's an actual law.
Right.
There's no law that says that Shedeur Sanders' phone number
has to be protected.
Right. Because I can tell you this, somebody gave some woman that was walking around the high school yesterday, gave him my cell phone number because they thought that, she should get a hold of me. It's not illegal. I'm annoyed as hell about it because I got the phone call in the middle of the show yesterday.
Right.
And she was complaining about something ridiculous.
Vince's HIPAA was not protected.
Right. Like, it's not illegal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm annoyed, but it's not illegal. So the punishment does not fit the crime in this regard.
I don't think so either. I think it's a bit too much for me. Now, I know, like, NFL fines go to charities and all that different kind of stuff, but still, like, it feels like it's too much. Michael says the coach won't lose a dime. Well, maybe not, I guess.
I mean, $100,000 worth of dimes. It seems.
Well, he's saying that the owner is going to pay for everything.
Oh,
I don't know.
Then that may be. Why would they? But maybe they will. I don't know. Doesn't matter. They shouldn't be asking for that kind of money anyway. So.
I don't think so either. Fox Sports has hired Robert Griffin III to be a college football game analyst for the upcoming season. He's going to replace Brock Heward and join Jason Benetti as the network's number 2 college football broadcast team. You in or out on RG3 in the college football game booth this season, Vince?
I think RG3 does a decent job from what I can, remember in my head. I think Jason Benetti is excellent. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of my analysis here is that Jason Benetti will bring him along and RG3 will be just fine because it's all about the play-by-play guy and how he's able to interact with the color guy. And I think Jason does a really, really, really good job. And so RG3 he's manageable. He knows his stuff. Like RG3 is fine. Jason will take him to the next level. So I mean,
Benetti, kind of has a way, like it's usually the analyst who is sort of questioning, like Benetti, I hear him all the time sort of, like questioning, why isn't the coach using his timeout? Or like he's using a time, like those kind of things. Like, so like he can be, sort of press the buttons, in his own way. RG3, I agree with with Andrew. Can be annoying on Twitter
This is true.
sometimes. And, ultimately it didn't work out at ESPN. He was doing more studio stuff, though he was in the game booth from time to time. I feel like between the two, the game booth is the better place for RG3 than the studio.
Yeah.
Like there's like, in the studio, there's kind of more time for the information and analysis and opinions to expand, whereas you have to do it in short bursts in the booth. And I think that, maybe, RG3 could kind of stray into, kind of corny and those kind of things from time to time. But I feel like you said, with Benetti being in the booth with him, this could shape up to be one of the better college football broadcast booths around.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
ultimately.
Yep, I agree. I think it could be good because a little bit goes a long way, right? With RG3, when he has more runway, that's probably not the best spot.
Eward, by the way, Andrew is asking, wonder if he went to ESPN. He's stepping away from broadcasting to help coach his son's high school team.
Oh, that's cool. What good for him?
Yeah,
I dig that.
So at least for a while, he's going to step away and do some of that. So that's pretty cool too. So musical acts and comedians have something known as a tour writer. It's the list of things that have to be in their dressing rooms when they go out on tour. Someone released recently Johnny Cash's rider, an old rider, obviously. It was 6 caffeine-free Diet Cokes, 6 Coca-Cola Classics, like how it's Coca-Cola Classic, because when it was basically made in the 80s when they had New Coke and Coke Classic.
Oh yeah.
Spring water, coffee, tea with honey, and lemon, and fruit and juice. That was Johnny Cash. Now Van Halen, their tour writer, a little bit more legendary. 53 pages. That included
crazy.
I know. Included things like 16-ounce cans of Schlitz malt liquor, 8 bottles of wine and liquor, copious amounts of M&Ms, but absolutely no brown M&Ms could be included.
Goodness.
So my question, Vince, if you had a rider, what would be on your list of requirements?
So I thought about this one for a while. And, obviously it depends on, do I have an entourage and what they would want? But for me personally, this one's pretty easy. So I'm always down for a ham sandwich. So I would have fresh cut deli ham, Colby Jack cheese, mayo, bread. And then I would also have some club crackers, so I could put some Colby Jack on the crackers, have a little snack. Okay.
Right.
I would have Mountain Dew because it's my favorite drink. I would have bottled water because, sometimes you don't want to necessarily do the dew.
True.
And then my sweet treat would be peanut butter M&Ms.
I like it. That is a very good list.
Thinking about this one, man.
Very good list. Mine would be Diet Pepsi. I would go with that. I would go with some water as well because you do need, mix it up a little bit from time to time. But then I would also require a movie popcorn machine to make freshly popped movie popcorn.
That's good.
Yeah, the smell and nice hot popcorn,
butter,
salt and butter and everything else.
Yeah.
But then my sweet treat, I would have a soft serve ice cream machine.
Oh, wow.
I would have chocolate, vanilla, and a peppermint option, so I could do twist if I want. And then I would also include the not the regular Reese's peanut butter cups, but the Christmas tree Reese's treats, because they're a little bit thicker and just a little bit nicer. The Christmas tree Reese's.
You're bringing in machines into your room, dude.
That's right. I got 2 machines. I got
2 machines,
and I got popcorn.
You got 2 machines, man. You're not messing around.
He says, Carlos says, get an air fryer popcorn maker. Ooh. Now I didn't know that was a thing. I'm gonna have to check that out. Man. David calls me out on the peppermint. Look, when Christmas rolls around, my daughter and I are peppermint ice cream fiends. So the thing is, like when you go to the soft serve yogurt store or whatever, so it would have like 3, so you'd have like 1 for chocolate, 1 for vanilla, and one for peppermint. So I don't always have to have the peppermint. I can go twist of any 2 of the 3 that I want, or I could get crazy and go all 3.
Wow.
So
listen, you're bringing in machines. Like, you went next level. I guess I need a fridge. You know what I mean? To keep the cold cuts cold and the mayo and things like I need a fridge probably.
Good call.
But I could get by with like a mini fridge. Like, I guess I'm not all that needy.
Greg says he's going to send the list to Driscoll. So.
Yes. I mean,
if I come in my office next week and there's a popcorn popper over here,
then I'm going to feel terrible that I did not ask for more.
Make up for a lot of things.
That's where I'm going to be on that one. Holy cow.
Michael says J-Lo needed Evian water to take baths in.
My God.
I could
Can you imagine like the intern that had to take out all the brown M&Ms or whatever?
Oh, I know. And I think Van Halen basically just did it to mess with people, like to make sure that they were reading the writer,
And that's fair. You want to see how much sway you actually have.
Yeah.
And I get that.
I mean, they were Van Halen.
Correct.
So. David wants to know favorite comedian of all time.
Man, are we talking like stand-up comedian or just like funny guy in the movies? Because I think those are different answers.
I mean, it just says I'll just go Seinfeld. I'll go Jerry Seinfeld.
Okay, that's fair. That's a really good one. I really like Sebastian Maniscalco. I think he's really, really funny.
Yeah.
It's stand-up wise. I think, gotta say it, I think Will Ferrell for movies. Will Ferrell or Vince Vaughn. Like, those are probably my 2 favorite guys to watch on like comedies and things like that.
I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I've seen him. John Mulaney. John Mulaney is the other one.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
I know who that is.
We went to see him in Chicago a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He's really good too.
No, he's really funny.
Yeah.
All right. My wife and I went and saw John Crist one time. He was really funny.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
I've heard the name. I can't place his face, though.
He does videos and stuff like on social media, and a lot of his shtick is like making fun of people, like church people and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty good, but like, yeah.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, he's good. It's clean.
Andrew wants to know David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. I'm sure you have zero opinion.
Don't care. Got nothing.
If I had to go best Van Halen, it would have to be David Lee Roth. I mean, there were some good Hagar songs, but like they completely rocked when it was David Lee Roth. So
Joe agrees. Joe agrees with you.
Joe agrees. Roth. Norm Macdonald, another funny guy.
Yeah.
Like, man, when he was like, have you ever seen the YouTube of him? Like, he ultimately got fired from Saturday Night Live because he was doing Weekend Update, and every week he would rip O.J. Simpson. It was like after the trial, and would always make reference to the fact that O.J. Simpson, killed his wife and a waiter and that kind of stuff. Like, oh, he was ruthless. He was ruthless. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the questions in the mailbag. As always, we'll be back tomorrow for another one. So we will talk to you then. Hit the like button before you leave. Talk to you later. Ivy Nation Sports Talk.